where we're going to continue with the review of Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Okay, you are most welcome. How's been your day? All right. So tonight, or whatever time it is where you're watching from, we're looking at the history of taxes and the power of corporations. I'm sure some people don't know that taxes have not always been there. Yes, it has not always been there from the beginning. All right. So how did taxes come about? At what point the people start paying taxes? These and more we're going to find out today, and how taxes actually make some people richer and make some poorer. All right. So taxes emanated from the idea of Robin Hood, taken from the rich and given to the poor, right? Robin Hood was an Englishman, and he was a thief. He would rob the rich people and give whatever he got from them to the poor. He believed that he was trying to close the gap between the rich and the poor. And even though Robin Hood was long gone, there are so many people today who believe in the theory or the initiative of Robin Hood, that yes, we should actually take from the rich people and give to the poor. While some people think that Robin Hood was a crook, like Rich Dad, he felt that Robin Hood was a crook. Some felt that, oh, Robin Hood should be celebrated. He tried to close the gap between the haves and the have-nots and things like that. All right. So the government also now decided to adopt this idea. Before then, people were not paying taxes. The government would put a levy on people once in a while, maybe anytime that there was war or anytime there was anything to be done nationally, people will be, asked to pay some money occasionally like that, especially whenever they needed money to, to go to war. For example, let me see the dates, the correct date now. For example, taxes were levied in Britain for the fight against Napoleon in 1799 to 1816. And in America, taxes were levied to pay for the Civil War from 1861 to 1865. So once in a while, the government could just tax people, okay, we need money to go to war and things like that, and people will pay. But it wasn't like a permanent thing that, oh, if you work, you must pay taxes, right? So the government, after a while, now found that, okay, this idea of Robin Hood is actually not a bad idea. People should be made to pay taxes. So in 1874, England made income tax a permanent levy on its citizens. And in 1913, an income tax became permanent in the United States of America, with the adoption of the 16th Amendment to the Constitution. And what the government did was to sell this idea to everybody. And the idea they sold to them was that, don't worry, there are some people who are earning in Nigeria oh, interesting. Don't worry, there are some people who are earning so much more, they are poor. We are going to take from them and give to you poor people and you middle class. So this made the poor and the middle class to buy into this idea, to buy into this law that was about to be signed. And that was how the government signed into law. So the idea of tax was actually developed to punish the rich people. But in essence, it is the poor and the middle class that are now being punished for paying taxes. We're going to learn how as we carry on, right? So it took approximately 50 years in both England and the United States to sell the idea of a regular income tax, to tell the people that, see, we need to start taxing you. But they needed to convince them. So they went in through the poor and the middle class to say, see, you had better agree to this thing. We'll take from those rich people and give you, right? We'll take from them and give you. And that was when they agreed, not knowing that it was going to backfire on them. So this is how the masses voted for the law, and it became constitutionally legal. Although it was intended to punish the rich, in reality, it wound up punishing the very people who voted for it, that is, the poor and the middle class. And once government tasted money, the appetite for government to start taking more money from the people grew. Before the government tasted money, we were like, okay, well, once we are one, people should not be made to pay extra. But the moment they tasted money, that, oh, so somebody can be earning $2,000 and the person can pay $250 from it, or whatever percentage it was then. This is a good idea, calculated by all the working citizens. This is a good idea. So the government saw that it was a very, very good idea. And as the government grew, more and more tax dollars were needed to support the government, the running of the government, the running of the country, and so on. So the author, Robert Kiyosaki, said that when he was about 10 years old, he would hear his rich dad say that the government workers were a pack of thieves, right? That, oh, all the money that the government was collecting from its citizens were being used, to pay government workers. But rich dad felt that he always had an opposing opinion to, poor dad always had an opposing opinion to rich dad. While rich dad felt that government workers were a bunch of lazy people. Yes, poor dad felt that the rich were crooks. So poor dad actually bought into the idea of Robin Hood, taking from the rich and giving to the poor, even though both of them had, valid points, but their points meant entirely different things. So the author said the passage of taxes was only possible because the masses believed in the Robin Hood theory of economics, which was to take from the rich and give to everyone else. The problem was that the government's appetite for money became so great that taxes soon needed to be levied on the middle class. And then from the middle class, it started trickling down to the poor. So today, whether you're middle class or you're poor, as long as you are working, you are going to pay taxes, right? At first, those that suffered the most for it were the upper middle class. There are levels to being in the middle class, where the upper middle class, those that were still, earning significantly well. But later on, it went to everybody. Like they will say in Nigeria, it reached everybody. It didn't touch everybody. Okay? So, Robert Kiyosaki said, having two fathers teaching him, one father was a socialist. He believed in the government controlling the society, controlling the market and things like that. The other father was a capitalist, right? In a capitalist society like America, individuals control the market. They determine the prices of goods and services in the market. In a capitalist society, if you have the brain to start selling anything, to dabble into business, you become rich. So a capitalist society will make the rich to keep getting richer and the poor to keep getting poorer. It is now left for those who cannot think that, oh, what can I also be selling, right, in this capitalist society, so that they can be earning money. Because if you go to America, for example, doctors will determine their own prices. The amount that this doctor will charge you will be different from the amount that that other doctor will charge you. They determine their own prices. A capitalist society is driven majorly by profits. So it is now a matter of who can drive this profit to use our pocket or to use our bank account, right? But Robert Kiyosaki began quickly to realize that the philosophy of the capitalist made more financial sense to him. It seemed to him that the socialists ultimately penalized themselves due to their lack of financial education, right? No matter what they take from the rich crowd came up with, the rich would always find a way to outsmart them. So eventually, this idea of taxes was developed to punish the rich. But the rich eventually found their way out of it by now paying lower taxes than the poor and the middle class. And how were they able to do that? Through the power of cooperation. or you may call it company, by owning their own companies. If you own a company, right, you don't even pay as much tax as an employee pays by working in that same company. And we're going to learn about this, So how did the rich outsmart the intellectuals? Once the take from the rich tax was passed, cash started flowing into government coffers. So initially, people were happy. Money was handed over to the government workers and the rich. How did the government make their money? They made their money through taxes that they levied on the people, right? So, and also through pensions. And how did the rich make their own money? By collecting contracts from the government, contracts to do this, contract to build that, contract to construct this, and all of that. So the rich now started benefiting from the taxes that the people were paying. The government became a large pool of money. But the problem was that fiscal management of that money was something that wasn't so strong. For example, if any government official wanted to do something, maybe what you can relate to, like a local government chairman, like we use in Nigeria, or any government official, or any government worker, or any top government boss, if they want to do something and they have their budget, the government allocates money to them, but they must finish spending that money. Otherwise, they cannot carry it over. Any amount that is allocated to you, you must finish it. So they were not rewarded by being efficient, that, oh, he tried to manage money, he still has excess money left. No, you have to finish it, or it goes back into the coffer of the government. But the rich people were being praised for being efficient, by having more and more money left. You see that there was no balance there. And that is how the rich people were able to circumvent this tax system, right? Because they have financial understanding, they are financially intelligent, they have financial education. Because the income tax rate of the corporation was less than the individual income tax rate, was what I was trying to explain the other time. So at the end of the day, the rich knew that if they are able to establish a corporation or a company, and what does a corporation mean? According to the author, it might just be on paper. It's just a legal document. For example, if you register your company today, anybody can register any company, right? The government is not going to come and inspect that, oh, do you already have a structure? Do you have staff working for you? Do you have a chair? Do you have a table? They don't need all that information. What they need is your details. What they need is the name of your company, your own identity, any other verification that they need to do to make sure that you're a real person, you're not a scammer, and whatever. They don't check whether you already have a building, whether you already have. So it is just on paper. You collect a certificate of corporation, or is it incorporation? You collect that certificate that, okay, this your business is registered. With that certificate, you can go to the bank, open a corporate account, right? You submit all necessary documents. So the rich now understood that, oh, by having a corporation, they can actually pay lower and lower taxes than those who are employees, So that was a smart way of doing this, to say anybody can have a corporation. Anybody can establish a company to circumvent paying a high amount of tax. And owning a company does not have to be physical. Just get a lawyer to help you prepare a legal document, you submit it. Once your business is approved, that is it. With that ordinary paper, you can go around claiming whatever you want to claim, that you own a corporation. That is how the rich were able to do that. So the battle between the haves and the have-nots has been going on for hundreds of years, for so many years, and the battle will continue to go on. The problem is that the people who lose are the uninformed people, those who keep working from January to December, from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. They are the ones paying higher taxes. Those who actually employ them are not even paying as much as these ones pay. The ones who get up every day and diligently go to work and pay taxes, they are the ones that lose in the scheme of things. If they only understood the way the rich people, play the game, they could play it too. Register your company. then they will be on their way to their own financial independence. Average Americans, as of that time, would work for like 5 to 6 months, let's say from January to May or January to June, for the government. If you calculate the amount that is being deducted, it shows that 12 months in a year, out of 12 months in a year, the money they earn for 5 months out of that 12 months or for 6 months actually belongs to the government in the form of taxes. And it is true. It is really, really true, not only in America, in so many developed countries. I'm not really sure how it works in Nigeria, right? But in so many developed countries where I work, you pay up to like 25%. And every time you collect your paycheck, you're so angry, like, what? A whole 25% in tax? That is too much, you know? And there's nothing you can do about it. It is deducted from source. So, it is employees that lose, right? Imagine working harder and harder. The more you work, the more you pay the government. I remember when I was in the UK and working there, and where I was working, sometimes, you know, people would want to take extra shift and all of that. Not me, because apart from the fact that it will take a toll on you, yeah, like the first place where I worked before moving somewhere else. But I'll see people, oh, extra shift, extra shift, extra shift, extra shift. Fine, they needed the money. But what many of them did not understand is that the more they worked, the higher the taxes that they pay, right? So for some of them, if they knew, they would even go home and rest, feel refreshed, to come back to work the next day. But because there's more work to be done, they needed more people to do this work, right? You ask for extra shifts, and then it is more like you are working for the government. The more you earn, the higher you earn, the higher your tax, right? And that is why the author felt like the idea of taking from the rich to give to the poor actually backfired on the people who voted for this law. Every time people tried to punish the rich simply did not comply. They reacted because they had power, they had influence, they had money to influence things, to change the law, to find their way around it. And they always succeed. They would hire accountants and attorneys, you know, to prepare the right documents that should be prepared, to look for the right tax code that they need to put to make sure that the amount of tax that they will pay will be so low, right? If you don't know the right tax code, I belong to a group, and today, you know, I was just reading chats where some people were saying, oh, this is how much tax I paid for this XYZ amount. It's so high. And another person was saying, no, I don't pay as much as this because this is the document that I submitted. This is the code that I'm using. So, you know, you see, it depends on your information. It depends on your knowledge. And some people also don't know that they need to file for tax returns in some of these advanced countries. What you don't know, you're only going to suffer for it, and you're going to suffer for it in vain, right? So financial education is not just about making money. It is also about how much money you are able to retain, how much money you are able to keep, how much money actually comes to you that is your own real money, so that the bulk of that money, your hard-earned money, does not keep going to the government. And the rich people know how to do this by minding their own business. They mind their business. They have their company. They dabble in, they have their corporation, company. They're minding their business. The poor and middle class do not have the same resources. They sit there and let the government needles enter their arm and allow the blood donation to begin, right? The author says he's always shocked at the number of people who pay more taxes or take fewer deductions simply because they are afraid of the government. And he would see so many people whose businesses have been closed down because they did not know their rights. Their business, you know, was put to ruins, closed down. Government officials, taxmen would come and tell them, oh, you are owing this amount of tax. Because these people did not know their rights, they didn't know the law. They fell prey. Only the government officials to come out later and to say, sorry, it was a mistake. What were they going to do? My poor dad never fought back. My rich dad didn't either. He just played the game smarter, and he did it through corporations, the biggest secret of the rich. Whether that corporation is a tangible thing, a tangible building, office somewhere, he owned the corporation, right? And he always reminded him that knowledge was power. What you don't know, you don't know. There is nothing you can do about it. Somebody can suffer for 10 years based on the fact that they lack knowledge, they lack information, right? Knowledge was power. And with money comes great power that requires the right knowledge to keep it and make it multiply. Without that knowledge, the world pushes you around. Rich Dad constantly reminded Mark and Robert Kiyosaki that the biggest bully was not the boss or the supervisor, but the taxman. The taxman will always take more if you let him. The first lesson of having money work for me, that's the author now, as opposed to working for money, is really all about power. If you work for money, you give that power to your employer. But if your money works for you, you keep and control the power. You need to know the law and how the system works. You have a business, for example, you don't even know how much you should be paying. Go to the tax office and find out. Hire an attorney. He said that it is even cheaper to hire those who are brainy, those who know the law, accountants, attorneys. He would pay them lesser than he would have paid the government. But some people don't want to hire these experts because they want to have all the money to themselves. Indirectly, the government is collecting the so-called money from them. You need to know the law. It is expensive not to know the law. It is too expensive. Just like they say, if you think that education is expensive, try ignorance. And you will see that ignorance is even way more expensive than education. If you know you are right, you are not afraid of fighting back. Know the law. There are some people who will fight with the police at the police checkpoints confidently because they know the law. When the police start asking for some car papers and everything, they will tell the police, no, it is not your duty. Using the case study of Nigeria, it is not your duty. This is the duty of the road corps officials and all of that, that there is a limit to the kind of papers that the police can ask for because they know the law. There are some people that are not afraid to go to the police station because they know the law. So you must know the law, right? His poor dad would always tell him, oh, go to school, get good grades so that when you come out, you can find a good job and then you rise to a top position through the ladder. But his rich dad would tell him, why not become the ladder? As his poor dad would say, oh, you need to work in a big corporation, so make sure you go to school and get good grades. His rich dad would tell him, why don't you own the corporation? You can actually own the corporation. So by the time the author was like 15, 16, he knew what he wanted. He knew he wasn't going to take the advice of his poor dad. He was so determined not to head in the direction that all his classmates were heading. He decided that he was not going to be an employer all his life. And this decision changed his life, right? He said it was not until when he was in his mid-20s that his rich dad's advice began to make more sense to him. And as he was just out of the Marine Corps, you know, he started working for Xerox. Xerox would sell photocopier, probably, did they have printers? I'm not sure. But what he mentioned here was photocopier because I know some Xerox products, right? I don't even know if they're still in circulation. So he started working for Xerox and he was making a lot of money. But every time he looked at his paycheck, he would be disappointed because the deductions were so loud. They've removed taxes, they've removed these charges, they've removed all of that. And he was always disappointed. But then he was determined to be successful. And every time his bosses talked about promotions, it was very flattering, it was juicy. But then he knew where he was going. He did not allow all of those benefits, juicy benefits, to get him carried away. Because his rich dad would always ask him, who are you working for? Who are you making rich? They can offer you promotions upon promotions, but you are enriching them. You need to learn to mind your own business. We learned about that yesterday. Even though you may be doing a 9-to-5 job, don't lose sight of your own business. Have your own business by the side. And this was exactly what Robert Kiyosaki did. In 1974, oh yeah, okay, thank you for that. In 1974, while still an employee at Xerox, he formed his own first corporation. He started minding his own business. So the salary and all the commissions that he was making from Xerox, he was now investing them into real estate. And he said that his real estate business grew so quickly. So what did he do? He started minding his business. He started working harder and harder at Xerox because he knew where he was going. He knew that he had to be minding his own business. So his own entire focus was not on Xerox, but on his own. But he started working harder. He said some business owners or some companies don't like the idea of telling people to mind their own business. But for him, he saw it as a good thing because this made him to work harder. For Xerox, he would go from door to door. Then he started making sales, massive sales, because he needed the money and the commission to pump into his own real estate business. So he worked harder and harder. There would hardly be a month or a week that he would not be among the top 5 salesmen in the company. Most times he would even be the number 1 because he started working so hard not to be spending the money on commission, but to now be investing it into his own business. And it came a time that his business grew so much, he was able to buy his Porsche car. His colleagues felt that, oh, he actually bought the car from his commission, that he was spending his commission. They did not know that all the commission and salaries he was getting, he was pumping into his own business. Do you see sense there? So don't be carried away by that fat salary. Work so hard, get the raise at work, get your promotion, but you're working hard so that the money can now be diverted into your own business, such that at any point, if you feel that your business has grown big enough, you want to leave, you don't want to work for anybody again. Or when the company you work for starts downsizing or they are laying people off, you're not going to be afraid because you have something, you have built something that you can fall back on. So he invested into his real business. His money was working so hard to make more money. Every money that went into his asset column, he would make sure that the money multiplied, right? And now, there are let me read this part. He said whenever he went out to talk to people about financial intelligence, he would remind them that financial IQ is made up of knowledge from 4 broad areas of expertise. If you think that you are financially intelligent, then you must have knowledge in these 4 areas. Number 1 is accounting, which is called financial literacy. And this is a vital skill that you must have. If you want to build a successful empire, a successful business, you must have knowledge of accounting. Even if you hire accountants, experts in accounting, whatever, to do it for you, you must have knowledge in it. The number 2 is in investing. He called this the science of making money, right? It involves strategies and formulas. You must know the right investments to dabble into. The number 3 thing is understanding the market. How does the market work? This makes a difference between successful business people and those who are not successful. Understand the market, the law of demand and supply. What are people looking for at this point? What solution can I provide? How can I dictate the price to make sure that my goods sell and things like that? And the number 4 thing is the law. If you want to be rich, you want to be financially intelligent, you must know the law. Otherwise, you're going to be cheated. The government may tell you this is how much you're supposed to pay. If you don't know the law, you're going to pay it, and then that is it. Other officials, different officials are going to start coming. Oh, you need to pay this amount. You need to pay this amount. You need to pay this levy. If you don't know the law, you're going to pay. All right. Now, what is the advantage of having a corporation? Or what advantage does a corporation have over an employee? If you own a corporation or a company, for example, you earn, right? You make money, and then you spend everything that you can spend from that money. And then tax is paid on the remaining amounts. But if you are working as an employee, you earn. As you earn, all taxes are deducted, and then you have to survive on the rest. You see the difference? If you own your company, you earn money, you make profit, and then from that profit, you can decide to incur every expense that you want to incur, buy everything you want to buy, pay salaries, paint your office, do everything, whatever is left as your profit. Maybe you make $8,000 in profit for a particular month, and then you pay salaries, you pay your workers, you do this, you buy that, you replace computers and all of that, and at the end of the day, $1,000 is left. You're going to pay tax on that $1,000. But let's assume that an employee, somebody that works for a company, is earning that same $8,000. As soon as the money is coming, before it even reaches the person's account, tax has been deducted. Let's assume that person is paying 25% in tax. By my calculation, how much will that be? Maybe like $2,000. Yes, that's $2,000. Ha! $2,000 out of $8,000 gone. So the person has to live on the remaining $6,000. Okay, so it actually pays off to own a corporation, because you earn, you spend, and then you pay taxes on the rest. But if you work for a corporation or a company, you earn, you pay taxes, and then you live on the rest. As part of your overall financial strategy, the author strongly suggests or recommends owning your own corporation wrapped around your assets. If you have any assets, you can tie it to your corporation. I hope that you're going to read more and research more about this. You can read this book so that you understand better. All right, we've come to the end of our review for tonight. It's been such an interesting one. So make sure that you gain knowledge on how you can become rich and sustain your wealth. Okay, so tomorrow we're going to be examining chapter 6, lesson 5, which is the rich invent money. Until then, we're going to see you. Don't forget to like this video. Please drop all of your comments. Subscribe to this channel if you are yet to subscribe. I remain Olaide Agbaje, also known as First Lady. And on this channel, I inspire you to live intentionally. I'll come your way again tomorrow by God's grace. Until then, be intentional. Bye-bye.